Welcome to the second episode coming from Teach the Children Homeschool Resource Center. I'm your host, Laura Battles, and I'm here today to talk to you about something most of us homeschoolers do in the spring. I mean, you can do it any time in a calendar year, but most of us do it in the spring, and that is our annual test or assessment. Our test or assessment. Every year, part of the Washington homeschool law, we have to do a test or assessment. And that is part of the, I have it here, the RCW code for being an independent homeschooler. So this is one of those things that we have to do if you're an independent homeschooling family. If you are going through a parent partnership program, which here in this local area is HomeLink or MCP, you can choose to test at that facility, or because you are through the public, you're technically a public school, your child is technically a public school child, you can opt out of it. That's a whole different ballgame. Don't want to get into that. I'm here today to talk just about the test that us independent homeschoolers have to take. So there are 3 rules here in Washington we have to abide by. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say, I don't want to test. I don't want to do all this stuff. I get it. I don't like testing my kids either. And I don't I know a lot of you guys are going to say, I don't want to co-parent with the government. Okay. I don't want to either. However, there are 3 rules or 3 laws we have to abide by. And I compare this to driving a car. If you want to drive a car, you get your driver's license, then you get insurance, and then you register, most people get a car and register it. So those are the 3 things. If most of the time, you just need to make sure you have those 3 things up to date, that you're paying for it. Unless you get pulled over for some reason, no one ever really checks or verifies that you have those things. I have never had anybody come to my house and been like, do you have a valid driver's license? Do you have valid driver's insurance? Do you have registration on your vehicle? Most people never have to do anything with that. But on the occasion that you do get pulled over, the policeman or policewoman asks for those things. So this is the same with testing. There is no homeschool police officer that's going to come to your house and say, show me that you've tested, show me you've done your DOI, and show me that you're qualified. Unless, for some reason, something bad happens. Let's say your neighbor calls you in, says, they don't like you, they don't like that your kids are homeschooling, and they call you in, and they report you in. Okay, so the police might show up and ask some questions. And if you've done all your paperwork, they leave you alone. Maybe you're going through an unfortunate situation in a divorce case and your spouse doesn't want you to homeschool, but you have all your paperwork filed. You can prove that your child is doing just fine homeschooling. You can have a better case for keeping your child homeschooling. I don't know everybody's situation, but I do know that for most of us, we'll never have to prove these things, but it's there just on the safe side. So again, I don't like to do all these little things, but I do it just to make sure that if this were to happen to me and I were to have CPS called on me, to have the police called, I could show, hey, I've done my DOI for my kids, I am qualified, and I've done my yearly testing. So I'm going to talk to you today about the yearly testing. Sorry, I'm messing with the computer to make sure I get my notes all open here. And we also have to do 1,000 hours a year, but 1,000 hours over 365 days is like 3 hours a day. And that can really be just about doing anything with your kids. So I'm going to start with the test. The test is a standardized achievement test. It is not a placement test. Or a year-end test for your curriculum company or an IQ test. This is a test that you may recognize as like a CAT or the Iowa testing, the Terra Nova, or the BASI test. I choose the CAT testing just because it's really simple. And I go through FLOW, Family Learning Organization, and they're out of Spokane. I will go to their website. I'm actually going to do it like the next week or two. I'm going to go to their website. I'm going to click on the test I want. I'm going to pay for it. They send the test to my house. I have 2 weeks to administer the test and get it back to them, or else you incur like financial penalties. It's nothing major, but they do are like, we want our test back. Rightly so. So then I take the test, I give it to my kids, and then I send it back to them. They grade it, and then they send me the results. What I do with those results is up to me and my husband. Last year, we weren't going to look at them. I was pretty adamant. I was like, I don't care what this test says. I know where my children are at. I know them better than any test could ever tell me anything about these tests. And so I wasn't going to. But then I was talking to a veteran homeschool mom, and she was like, open it up and it will give you some insights into things that maybe you do need to work on, or maybe something that surprises you. You may think that you guys, haven't done anything in language arts, and yet they're on grade or ahead of grade. Maybe you guys have been nailing it on math and it's just not working, so you need to change something up. So I went ahead and opened it for my 2 kids who are over 8, and it ended up being just fine. Like, my husband was like, if they were in public school, these test results, the teacher would pat you on the back and say, good job, they're moving to the next grade. Of course, I panicked, but for just a small second. And then I was like, you know what? This is just telling me on that day, this is how they did. And that's all it told me. So the flow out of Spokane has tests. I have a packet here. I can link it to you. Guys, I just want to show you real quick. These are the tests, the testing. They offer the Stanford, the Terra Nova, and the CAT. And then they also have test prep, and then test prep that you can order from them, and they're great. If you go to the Washington Homeschool Organization's website, it's washhomeschool.org. They actually have a list of all the places you can get testing. So if you're in Seattle area, they have a list of places you can get the testing from that's local. You can order all these various kinds and then get them sent to your house. I know another popular one is homeschoolboss.com. That's done all online. If you guys are really comfortable doing things online, I would recommend an online test. The big thing is, though, you have to make sure you get the results back and you keep them in your hand. So if you take a test and they're like, we hold on to your test results, you don't ever have to have a copy. Don't do it. Have them send you the test results. So another option with testing is at the beginning of every school year for the public schools, you can call them up and say, hey, when are you guys doing your testing this year? And they'll tell you the date, and you can just say, look, we're homeschoolers. I turned in my DOI. I want to make sure that my kid is going to be tested on that day. And so they'll give you all the information, and you show up, your kid can test in the public school. And as long as you get those test results back, those tests will count for you and for your child for that year. And so it's a test in a calendar year, January to December. Most of the tests are normed for springtime. So I always recommend, and I think a lot of the testing companies recommend testing in the spring. But if you start your school year in January and you are done with your stuff in December versus starting following the public school calendar, then test your child in the fall. No one is going to say anything different. You just need to make sure you adjust which test you get accordingly. So my kids are in 3rd and 5th grade. I will get them the 3rd and 5th grade tests this year, and I'll test them. If for some reason one of those kids was a little bit behind on either of those, I would get them the test that most represents where they're at overall. For the most part, my kids are in those grade ages. But, if my son was, he's finishing 5th grade. If he was doing most things in 7th or 8th grade, I would get him a test for 7th or 8th grade. But I'm just keeping him right at the 5th grade testing this year. So the other thing you can do, let me know if you have any questions on that. I'm on the YouTube comments. If you have any questions, you can post them there. Or if you have more in-depth questions, you can email me, and I'll put my email address at the end of this podcast or on YouTube so you can see what that is. But the other thing you can do is an assessment, and that can also be done through Flow. They do assessments, And what you do is so you sort of collect a good smattering of work that your child has done through the year. You put it all together. Some places have you write up like a synopsis of like all the things you've done. Other ones have you fill out a little questionnaire, and then you send it into them, and a certified teacher reviews that all that stuff that your child has done throughout the year, and then they sort of grade it, and then they'll give you back a report. I have never done an assessment, but if you and your child are really adverse to testing, like they just clam up whenever you give a test at home, they don't handle that very well, I would say do an assessment. It's wonderful. It's a good representation of their work. Sort of shows their personality in their assessment. And so those are the two options that you can do for testing. And again, here I'm reading a little bit more. The assessment has to be written. It has to show the assessment of the academic performance across 11 subjects, performed by a Washington certified person. And the flow has all that information, has all these, we'll tell you all this stuff. And it has to be graded by a teacher who's currently working in the field of education. So if you order through like Flow, the Family Learning Organization, they make sure that all these bases are covered and you don't have to try to go out and find a teacher to grade your papers. You just do all this stuff and you send it to them and they take care of the rest. And that applies to any other testing organization that you order the test through. If they're giving it to you, they're making sure that they have all the boxes checked for all the requirements for Washington State. Now, again, this is Washington State's requirement. I know Oregon does things differently. I have no idea how Idaho works, but since those are the two states that border Washington, I would assume that those would be the ones where people may be like, but Idaho's doing this. I don't know what Idaho's doing. I also really don't know what Oregon's doing. I just know in Washington, we need to test yearly or do an assessment. Again, the best place to go where I get most of my information is at the Washington Homeschool Organization's website. They just have all this testing information out there for you. And I would definitely recommend checking them out, because then they're also going to give you all the places you can order it. Various places have different costs. I know the homeschoolboss.com is more like $60 or around there. The Flow is $40, I think, per child. Now, and again, you only have to test kids 8 and over. So if you have a kid at home who's in kindergarten or first grade and they haven't hit that 8-year-old mark yet, don't test them. You can, but there's no legal requirement to test them. And then if your child is over 18 and they're still, you're still wrapping up a few things, they don't have to test once they're over the age of 18. So it has two purposes. It keeps us in compliance, or you and your family in compliance with the law. And it just sort of helps assess where you're at for the year. If you don't want to take a look at the test results, no one is going to make you look at those test results. If it gives you so much anxiety and you're just so nervous about taking this test and having your child do it and then seeing the results, and you think you're going to be a failure if they don't pass everything, then don't open those test results. Have your kid take it and just file it away. No one is required to look at the test. You just have to have it, and you have to have it done by the end of each calendar year. And I really want to stress that this is just any test that your child takes, you take. It's just a snapshot of what you know on that day. And if you're having an off day, the test is probably going to reflect you having an off day. We don't always all have good days, and that's the same with our children. And so we need to love on them. We need to tell them that this test is really not as important as it's really just not that important. Just have them take it, file it away, and move on. Last year, my oldest son, he wanted to take the whole test himself independently. So I let him. And when we got the test results back, you could sort of see areas where I was like, I probably should have sat down and at least read the question to him, because his reading is not, not, it's not great, but it's not bad. So, it's just on par. And I could really tell it reflected in some areas. But I was like, you know what? I don't care. I know him. I know he knows these things because when, we do this stuff at home, he aces it. Like there's no questions asked. And he remembers things, but he can also draw you full on comic books and he comes up with characters. So that's why I'm like, these tests don't reflect all those other cool things our homeschool kids are doing. So that's what I just want to talk to you a little bit about today. Make sure you go out and get it done. Just a few other things. If you're in a parent partnership program, you can test through your school there, or they have other rules that apply, but this is really just towards independent homeschoolers. As independent homeschoolers, we can utilize the public school for this test, for testing. So if you guys are just really strapped for cash this year, utilize that. There's nothing wrong with utilizing the public school. I feel like that's a great option. And it might show that how great homeschooling can be, if you go in there and, so I have nothing against using the public school testing at all. And that's about it. Oh, make sure that if your kid turns 8 at the end of the school year, don't test. Wait until they've completed 1 full year of being 8 and homeschooling. Don't try to my kid just turned 8 in May. I need to test them. No, just wait till the next year. We're good. But just make sure you keep all this stuff. Again, this is just to cover, dot our I's, cross our T's, cover yourself. You never know what might happen. I would love to say that no homeschooler has ever been reported in because their kids are out playing in the middle of the day and don't look bored and they're being great, but neighbors are going to be neighbors and people are going to be people. And there's still people who don't understand that homeschoolers set their own schedule and they do their own thing. They may not have realized that, at 9 o'clock, they woke up at 6 and they got all their schoolwork done. So of course they're out playing at 9 o'clock. That's sort of how mine are. They get up early, they eat, they get their schoolwork done. And by about noon, they're outside playing all day. So if someone looked at and been like, oh, those kids every day aren't playing, I could get reported in. But since I've done my DOI, I've done my testing. I cover all the subjects. I'm qualified. My husband's even qualified. So we have all our bases covered. And I don't like all the laws, but I'm going to obey them because Washington has currently very lax homeschool laws. And I want to keep it that way. The more we all try to fight these things, the more the governors and people could really step down and say, no, I think we need to change those laws. And we have it really pretty good compared to some states. So if you have any comments or questions, put it in the notes below. Send me an email. My email is office@teachthechildren.net. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. If you want to look up a Washington Homeschool Organization's website for more information, they're washhomeschool.org. Again, just a question. If you want to have talk to Flo directly, you can do that. They are great. They answer the phone. They answer all my questions last year. I cannot speak highly enough of them. They are wonderful people up in Spokane. So, all right. If this was helpful, let me know. Give it a review. You can like it, subscribe to this podcast, follow it, rate it, share it, do all the things that you're supposed to do out there in the podcasting world. I am still learning all about podcasting. I spend endless hours researching what I'm supposed to do, not supposed to do. So if anybody would love to help me, I would take the help because sometimes I feel like I'm in the deep end and I can barely breathe at what I'm doing here. So thank you guys. I'll see you next time.